So I decided, okay, I'm going to test my own self as the guinea pig of what I'm talking about and what we're going to do today, this attitude of gratitude. So I started thinking of everything possible under the sun I could be grateful for. And oh my God, when you have to think up those things, there's a lot of things actually, but your mind kind of doesn't want to, because it wants to say, yeah, but I'm tired, but I'm really hungry, I'm thirsty, how much longer? I said, thank you, God, for my legs. Thank you, God, for my feet. Thank you, God, for my breath. And it went on and on and on for about an hour straight. And then my daughter would say, Mama, look, isn't it beautiful out there? And I'd look out, and I would say, yeah, it's really beautiful, but my hip hurts. You know? And so what do you choose? What do you choose to emphasize in your life? And I think we all have that choice. Is that true? I mean, you can either, you know, think of my hip hurts or it's so beautiful. And then every time I was starting to get they're these little, actually they're the color of this rug, little butterflies, just little, or maybe they're moths, go flapping around, you know. And that was really beautiful, because when butterflies and birds, especially hummingbirds, and different animals come across your path, it's for reminder of God, reminder of oneness. I'm going to tell one little story of gratitude, and then we're going to start. It was about 7 years ago, not that long in my lifespan, that my teacher, Yogi Bhajan, had passed, and it was in the spring that he had passed, and I was at the Omega Institute. Who knows Omega? Yeah. I was there in the spring, and he had passed, and I was flying home to find out when I landed that he had passed. And of course, everyone went through a lot of changes. They still are 8 years later. When you have somebody that you cherished in your heart for 35 years, and now it's 43 years. So he passed, and then the next fall I went back to teach another immersion. And it's funny, before I teach, and maybe some of you teachers or whatever walk of life, you might go through this very same thing. Do you ever go through this thing like, finally they're going to figure out I don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't know what I'm doing. And they're finally figure out I'm a phony, I'm a hoax, and you know, the gig is going to be up. And so it used to happen more. It doesn't happen as much now, but it's still, I still have a few inhales and exhales on it. But 7 years ago, it happened a lot, and I said, this is it. I was teaching a prenatal pulse away teacher's training, a 60-hour course, and I said, they're finally going to figure out that I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm making it all up. And so I was with a very, very dear friend. We were at the swimming pool, and I was imparting to her, here I go again. I'm starting to go south in my thoughts, my fear was taking over. And of course, a good friend says, that's ridiculous, you know, you're good, you know, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff that a good friend says. But I still didn't believe 100%, so I started walking up. I was staying at the Hermitage House, which was above the meditation pond in the building. It was so beautiful. And I got up to the pond, and it's a good-sized pond. And I'm walking towards the pond, and all of a sudden, a thump right here on the back of my shoulder, my lower shoulder, just went thump like this. It almost jarred me, almost having me fall over. But I knew it wasn't a person. I knew it wasn't a branch that had fallen or a rock, anything like that, because it was a little bit seemingly furry or feathery, and it felt alive. You know, you can tell when these are alive or dead, right? And before I could even think what it was, from behind me flew over to the other side of the small pond, and it just sat there and stared at me. It was an owl. In the middle of the afternoon, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, owls don't come out at 3 o'clock. It was a monkey face, the white face, and it was like this, and his eyes got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just stared at me. And then it left, probably 10, 20 seconds. So I'm thinking, this really didn't happen. I mean, I took a lot of drugs in the 60s, so am I having a deja vu. I couldn't figure it out. And before I knew it, at that time, getting cell sites at Omega was really, really challenging. And there were little spots all over campus, and there was one girl behind a tree, not too far away, who witnessed the whole thing. It was like a CNN on the spot report. She was talking to her friend, you can't believe what I saw. And then she recalled the whole thing, so I knew that it was true. So I was dazzled and everything, and I walked up to the Hermitage house. And my friend Satya came a bit later, and I told her what happened. And she turned around and she looked at me. She says, well, that was Yogi Bhajan. And then I did recall, whenever he would talk to me, and he'd speak words of deep truth about my soul, he would just look at me like this, and his eyes would get, all I'd see is these big flying saucer eyes, like he never even had to say anything, the truth just came out of the eyes. And I was so filled with gratitude that he would come in the form of an owl and just set me to my own truth. And I think so oftentimes in life that happens with us. If it's a butterfly, if it's a hummingbird, if it's a friend that calls you out of nowhere, if it's a line you read in a book, if it's a person you pass on the street, to help to remind you of who you are. And when you know and have that experience over and over who you are, that gratefulness comes by nature. You just melt. And I've been teaching the last 3 days now, and it seems like the same theme keeps going back and back, even though the subject title is different. But to be able to get up in the morning, and before you get up, to recite 10 things inside of you that you're grateful for. And then, step number 2, before you get up, just say one line. How can I serve today? Who can I help today? Otherwise, the nature of the mind will often go negative. Like, I have so much to do today, nothing's going to work, my bones ache. You start thinking of the list of things you have to do, whatever it is in your life. Because most of us have a life of things to do that day. But if you just take a pause, I'm breathing again. Thank you. All my limbs seem to be working again. Thank you. I have running water, which I can take a shower. Thank you. I have food in my refrigerator. Thank you. It goes on and on and on. And I was pretty amazed for almost an hour straight how I had to keep going on and on to keep walking up that mountain. It's like life, though. That trip this morning was like life itself. And I'm so grateful that we did it, and I'd like to do it again next year. But next year I'll do it differently, and I'll tell you how. Next year I'll do it for a whole day, instead of having to ask my husband, what time is it now? Am I going to get down for class? When's the cable? Things like that. Because there were some people following us, and they stopped at the lake. And that's like life, isn't it? Like, you work hard, you sweat, you even maybe get a little discouraged, you're a little, is it really going to work? And then you get to this pristine, cold lake, and I heard them jumping in and laughing. But I had to keep going to the top because I had to get back there, which I was so grateful too. But I think a lot of gratefulness comes when we ebb and flow our lives, right, too. When we have that luxury or that freedom to work hard, relax, sleep well. So much gratefulness comes from that than all the stress that we put ourselves unnecessarily. And if I would ask all of you, where does your stress and worry come from? And almost all you would say, from myself. But we have to do a formula that everybody else is doing, where you can ask yourself today, in all the gratefulness that you have up in this mountain, and with all these amazing people, and all this wanderlust happiness, do I want to go home and just repeat the patterns in my life? Did those patterns bring me gratefulness? Did those patterns bring me happiness? And if they didn't, how could I change them? You're not a slave to your patterns. Have some of you been thinking about that? How you're going to go back home and maybe do it a bit differently? It doesn't have to be a big switch, but maybe just change a little bit. Try some